Hello, my name is Helen. I'm a member of Montgomery. 4 years ago, I moved to Asbury Methodist Village in Gaithersburg, where I now live. Several years ago, I went to a retreat, and the speaker said we were all flowers in God's garden. And we have two types of friends, those who are annuals and who are perennials. For you non-garden friends, annuals mean that the plant grows from seed. Examples of this would be impatiens, marigolds, and zinnias. Perennials grow from bulbs or tubers. Examples are peonies, irises, and daffodils. Our annual friends are people that we have known in the past. Maybe they were members of our church. Maybe we even worked in vacation Bible school with them. We knew them, but we've grown apart. Things have changed. Maybe they have moved away. This happens to me quite often. Somebody will call me and say, I saw so-and-so. Do you remember them? The name might be kind of familiar, and I might say, well, tell me more about them, jog my memory. And sometimes they'll tell me a few things and I'll say, oh yes, I remember them. Other times, no matter what they tell me, there's no jogging of my memory, just their name is familiar. When I had my house, I planted a lot of impatiens. We had a lot of trees and therefore a lot of shade. Impatiens do well in both sun and shade. And during the summer, I'd find plants growing where I hadn't planted them. And I knew what had happened. In the fall, when I had put my garden to bed, I had taken the flower and sort of shaken it to get some of the dirt off. It had gone to seed, and the seeds flew all over. Some fell on the ground. They lay there dormant all winter long until the right conditions were there, and they grew. They were always nice, healthy plants. Those are called rogue plants. We all have friends who are considered as rogue plant friends. They are people who had a hard time growing up. Maybe the father abandoned the family, or maybe something had happened and the children had to be separated, and maybe some went into foster care. And yet here they are, years later, good, upstanding citizens. They have been able to overcome their circumstances and have survived and have done well. They are our rogue plant friends. Asbury has some lovely gardens. I had a garden here for 3 years, but I gave it up this year. I had other things I wanted to do, and it was taking up a lot of my time. And besides, it was getting a little hard to work in it. The other day, a friend and I went for a walk through the gardens, and they were beautiful. They have been especially nice this year because we've had a cool spring. One of the things we saw were some beautiful roses. They are called knockout roses or forever roses. That was a good name for them because they bloom forever. And when I thought of the name, I thought of my forever friends that I have known. They have been in my heart for years. They could be friends from church or even family members. They will always be in my heart. I do not need to jog my memory. They are people that have been very dear to me, and they're no longer living, and I miss them. I really miss them. We decided to go and see my garden, which I no longer have this year. The first year, somebody had given me some peonies and irises. And the first year, I wasn't sure whether peonies were going to survive. They didn't die, but they didn't grow either. Last year, there were quite a few blossoms on them. This year, they were just loaded with big blossoms, and it was going to be a bumper crop of peonies. I also had blueberries and raspberries, and even though I had a net over them, in the end, the birds had more fruit to eat than I did. Corinne, who had taken over my garden, had got rid of them, and I didn't blame her. It was kind of a lost cause fighting the birds. In some ways, it was my garden, and yet it wasn't. She had planted a few plants that I didn't recognize, but that was okay. We don't like change. We long for the good old days when life was easier and not so hectic. I always say if I go completely insane, it'll be because my computer drove me to it. There are some days when my computer and I just do not get along. On the other hand, the other day, I had an email photo of my 2.5-year-old great-grandson, Eliot. He was running through a puddle of water and just making a splash and just laughing. He was acting like, well, why doesn't everybody do this and have so much fun? He also has a 3-month-old brother, Peter, that I haven't seen except in video photos. I don't know when it's going to be safe for me to get on a plane and go see them in person. In the 60s, there were a lot of people that had a T-shirt that said, "Bloom where you're planted." And I feel that I am planted in the right garden by God. I don't like the isolation of the coronavirus, but people here bend over backwards to look after us and keep us safe. Each morning, I choose from a menu, and I check off what I would like to eat. And that evening, my doorbell rings, and the meal is delivered to me. I have beautiful grounds to walk on here. There are 2 ponds, and there's a lot of animals. At this time of year, there's a lot of baby geese, and it's kind of fun to see them. And the first ones that hatched are now starting to get feathers. And as the new ones hatch, you can see how nice and fluffy they are. When I watch the news, I feel sad. I feel sad for the people who have lost their jobs. I feel sorry for the ones who have to line up to get food for the first time in their lives. And I realize how much God is continuing to bless me. He pours out his blessings and mercies on me, and I feel very blessed by him.